The US government literally shut down, and we're all wondering what is going to happen with crypto, what's going to happen with the financial markets. So let's just jump right into it. I'm Brett at CryptoGX, and today we're talking about the US government shutdown and what's going to happen next. I know you're all wondering what is going on with crypto. I did a video very recently on Bitcoin specifically when it comes to October and typically what happens and what, we're guessing. And this is kind of going to be a follow-up to that because now we need to factor in this government shutdown. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all of the kind of factors of this shutdown, what's been happening with Bitcoin and where I think it's going, and kind of some tips for, where we can keep our eyes for, what to look out for over the next month or so. So I typically look at Binance Square to see what things are trending. Obviously, the US government shutdown is number 5 when it comes to crypto topics. I also like to look at the block for articles that are, trending right now and seeing what's really going on. Now, this is a really important place to start. Bitcoin tops $121,000. Ether hits 3-week high amid US shutdown shuffle. And if we scroll down here, you can see that history really, says that shutdowns don't kill rallies. The S&P, for example, has advanced during every single government shutdown since 1990. So as you can see here as well, if we're looking at the TradingView chart, the price action is confirming the strength of Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin is near its prior all-time high. As you can see, we're right here around 21,000, the all-time high being right here around 24,000. Now, October has historically been Bitcoin's best month, averaging about 14% growth since 2013. Now, also you can see that ETF money is flowing in. I've talked about ETFs a bunch on the channel. For the beginners out there, make sure to check out my videos on the channel about ETFs to understand what they are. But in general, the inflows for ETFs have been coming in at nearly $2.4 billion. Now, if this shutdown passes October 17th, which is jobs reference week, the official data gets a little messy. Markets and the FUD are going to start to guess more. The volatility can go crazy, and risky assets, have done okay in past shutdowns, but it's something to watch. Now, if you go to Polymarket, you can see the odds of the government being shut down by certain amounts of days. Here we got 10 to 29 days as 61%. So most people think this is going to last at least 10 to 30 days. So, probably near the end of October. With that, you're going to have to prepare for a longer news cycle, choppier headlines, and just basically more uncertainty over this next 10 to 29 days, essentially. Now, the other thing that's pretty interesting during this timeline is that markets are pricing in another Fed cut in late October, or a rate cut if you're not familiar, at about 98% odds. Typically when a rate cut comes in, or lower rates in general, those usually lift risk assets and they give more money to them, basically increasing the price. So being that this is a 98% chance, if that ends up hitting, then Bitcoin is just undoubtedly going to go up. This is something that we can expect in 26 days, as you can see right here from the FedWatch page. 26 days is when they're going to meet and make those decisions. You can also track the percentage of the likelihood of a rate cut. As you can see right here, we are in the 98% range. Now, gold is almost about to break above the 3,900 range here. JPM thinks that Bitcoin is cheap compared to gold on a volume adjusted basis. So basically what this means is that it implies upside towards the, 165,000 mark for Bitcoin by the end of the year. As you can see, that's part of this article right here. This is just the JPMorgan analyst look, implying that upside towards 165,000. Now, another worry is debt and inflation. Obviously, people hedge those kinds of things with gold and Bitcoin. That narrative is definitely present here, and it is something that attracts retail investors and institutional investors. Basically, this hedge against debt and inflation is called the debasement trade. So if you ever hear that, that's what that means. Then you can't just look at Bitcoin. You have to look at kind of the broader signals, and I think Coinbase is a pretty good look for the broader signals of the market, just since, Coinbase essentially is what people think about the entire crypto market when it comes to the price fluctuations of it. As you can see here, if we zoom in on Coinbase, just in the last day, it is up 7%. Now, with all of this, I'm still bullish on Bitcoin, and, obviously the Uptober trend and history is a big part of that, in my opinion, because, that's just how Bitcoin operates at the end of the bull cycle in that final October. Lots of people and analysts and, even some historical data is pushing us towards this at least 140,000 mark, this 140,000 mark right here. That's really where I'm looking for if we break above our 124,000, at least for a kind of midterm play between now and the end of October. I want to see where we land before we hit November 1st to see how big of a move further than that it could potentially go. Now, we also have to look at Ethereum. So let me pull up the Ethereum chart here as well. Obviously, we hit a high here of about 4,800 4,900. And that was the first time we got into all-time high territory for Ethereum in a long time. And we had our typical September down, and we're trending upwards to it. Same, just like Bitcoin, near all-time high, but not quite all the way there yet. At the moment, we're about a 8% move away from getting back to all-time high territory. And you can see with this volume trend going up, and you can see with the price trend going up, things are looking good. All of the ETF inflows are looking good for Ethereum as well, which is talked about in this article. So to kind of sum all this up, I really want to boil this down to make it really simple for you. The shutdown isn't stopping any sort of risk assets and people investing in them. With the October seasonality that Bitcoin sees at the end of its bull market, or Uptober, that's doing a lot to really help Bitcoin, as well as these huge ETF inflows for Bitcoin and Ethereum, really. The high odds of another Fed rate cut are also fantastic because people are kind of pricing that in, being that it's at a 98%. People are investing as if the Fed has cut the rate already. And then gold is at an all-time high, which is reinforcing that debasement trade that I told you about before, a hedge against fiat currencies and inflation. Now, in the near term, Bitcoin is going to be the leader. Ethereum is still strong. There is flows going in there. It's also nearing its all-time high, but Ethereum against Bitcoin can still lag when Bitcoin has dominance, which it certainly does at the moment, which I went over in my last video regarding that. So definitely check out that video. At the moment, my recommendations or my ideas would be to stay strong in Bitcoin. Don't entirely, rebalance into something like Ethereum or any other altcoins entirely. You may want to kind of hedge a little bit with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's typically going to move first historically in every bull run. When Bitcoin moves, then Ethereum moves, then the altcoins move. Our targets are to watch Bitcoin. And if I go back to the chart right here, we are at the 121,000. In the next day or so, I would assume we're going to potentially see this 124,000 at least in the next week or so. And then beyond that, the sky's the limit at the moment. I wouldn't get too crazy. That might be over exaggerating, but that's what we're looking for. And that sky limit is at least 140,000 is where we're going to be trying to target, if not 150. Now, if the Fed does not cut the rate, that's something to keep an eye out for. As I showed you before, in 26 days, that's going to happen, at least 26 days from shooting this video on October 3rd. So basically that's going to be October 30th. And then the other thing to watch for is if this shutdown stays going until after, let's say, middle of October, the 15th, 16th, 17th, that's something that's going to make the markets much more volatile. It might not necessarily mean negative things for Bitcoin, but it also isn't necessarily going to mean positive things for Bitcoin. At the moment, it is showing positive things for Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't really care that the government's shut down, and people maybe even are intentionally choosing to invest in Bitcoin because of that kind of debasement trade that we talked about. So stay safe out there. I hope you learned something. If you did, make sure to drop a like on this video so other people can find it, and subscribe to stay tuned for all things crypto. I'll leave links to Coinbase and Crypto.com in the description, where you'll get at least $50 in free crypto for signing up with those links. And if you want to get into some meme coins, I'll leave a link to MoonShot, where you'll get to claim some free meme coins just for signing up. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.